Doubles and coffee. What madness yesterday. They opened St. Anne's and mad people run out. Oh, all you thought I talking about Rowley. Me ain't care about he distraction. Let me tell you all something. I have in my hand the affidavit sworn by the CEO of the CEPEP company of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Keith Eddy. And I'm going to read it for you. This is a sworn affidavit, sworn and stamped in front of a commissioner of affidavits, Videsh Mahabir. Now listen to this. And Faris Arawi, is you we want to hear. We don't want to hear some man who went and quit on his walk and went all over and saying people looking for he seeing ghosts and all kind of thing. It's you, Faris Arawi, where your press conference. Stuart Richard Young, you were the Prime Minister, the head of the cabinet. We need to hear from you. We need you to hold up a cabinet note and say, look it here. They had cabinet approval for $1.4 billion to renew contracts that did not even need renewal and to add contractors. And you, Vishnu Dan Paul, the Minister of Finance of Kobo Sweat, you were the Minister of Finance. Did you talk to Arawi? Did you give him the approval? Do you know that you cannot give cabinet approval as a Minister of Finance? Only a Prime Minister can give approval and then go back to cabinet for covering approval. Did Stuart Richard Young do that? All you get all your stories straight, make all your statement because court ain't nice and jail ain't nice. The man say he going by the police, he going by the Integrity Commission, he going to the Commissioner of Police, he making report to the fraud squad. Let me read to you, Trinidad and Tobago, from a sworn affidavit of a man who is the CEO in charge of CEPEP, Mr. Keith Eddy, General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of the CEPEP company, right? And paragraph 3. I say that I was appointed in July 2016, and this is the first time that I've ever had to deal with a situation where the company was extending all of its contracts with contractors en masse in such a wholesale manner, regardless of whether the contract had expired or had substantial periods of time left to run until they expired. I was therefore of the clear opinion that prior cabinet approval was necessary for such a massive transaction, more so because the contracts were not simply going to be extended for 1 year, but rather up to a maximum of 3 years. Paragraph 4. I was particularly concerned to ensure that cabinet approval was granted because of an earlier incident which had occurred in May 2024. The man making a case to show all you not only that he understands because his job, he was there from 2016 and he knows about cabinet approval and the process of expenditure of taxpayers' money, but there was an issue in this same PNM, with this same board, with this same government, with Faris Arawi as minister, with Keith Rowley as prime minister. He said there was an earlier incident that had occurred in May 2024. My contemporaneous WhatsApp messages, now this is where the man making sure that who want to lie, but he have WhatsApp, he has screenshot, he have records of conversations with Mr. Edwards, the chairman, shows that CEPEP was being accused of increasing expenditure without consent, engaging in unjustified and uncontrolled expenditure, and the Central Audit Committee in the Ministry of Finance, this is under Colmimber, you could give a statement too, had allegedly discovered and reported on major discrepancies. So this is showing, one, that before we reach here to 2025, everybody, all these players knew that in order to expend taxpayers' money, you needed approval, you need cabinet approval, you need authority, you cannot go wild. So anybody pretending or lying or trying to say, no, cabinet approval is not necessary, nonsensical. You, the population, have already seen from the current permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance that, of course, absolutely critically necessary is cabinet approval to expend this type of money. And the 22nd of May 2024, Keith Eddy says to Edwards The PM has instructed a report on the differences between the Ministry of Finance and CEPEP, Ministry of Rural Development and so on, over expenditure on CEPEP within the week. So Rowley want to know about what happening, how are they spending money while so he needs some money for some recusals from his cabinet ministers, and the Minister of Finance him but tell them but it have no money there for all you, and it have no money for Noel Garcia to do his thing, because Noel Garcia have one big bag boy coming out of the grocery, remember? And Rowley want to know, but who's spending money when he is the man to make sure that all the money spent through Noel Garcia? The allegations include that CEPEP has increased its expenditure without consent. What does that mean? Without consent, without cabinet approval, without the pink piece of paper, the confirmed minute. That the expenditure is effectively unjustified and uncontrolled. On the 22nd of May, 2024, Joel Edwards, the then chairman, who now trying to make up all kind of stories, and Joel Edwards is looking good with the affidavit. This is from Minister Al-Rawi asking Keith Eddy, and Keith Eddy says, yes. I therefore indicated, says Eddy, as much to Mr. Edwards and informed him that I would not be willing to extend all contracts for a further 3 years without prior cabinet approval. I also informed Mr. Edwards that Minister Al-Rawi's right-hand man, who was a change manager at the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, Mr. Sadiq Hussain, who is that, had attempted to engage me before on this very issue, and I did not entertain any discussion with him. On March 21st, 2025, Mr. Hussain sent me a WhatsApp message which read as follows. Man, put and stamp all the WhatsApp messages, they are true copies put within this affidavit here. Further to our conversation today, we would like to renew all contractors for a period of 3 years. Sadiq Hussain, who is you, the minister? You the prime minister? You the cabinet? If that were to change, can we hire an additional 12 contractors? He gone back to cabinet note to say the maximum and so on. I informed the chairman that I had not replied and reiterated my position that under no circumstances would I be willing to proceed to renew all contracts in the absence of cabinet approval, and that I would not be intimidated, pressured, nor bullied into doing so. I indicated this to him because I felt as if I was being pressured into extending the contracts without cabinet approval, despite my express view that this was necessary in the circumstances. Once cabinet approval was granted, I would have no difficulty in implementing the decision of the cabinet. Paragraph 7, I was of this opinion because CEPEP is wholly owned by government, and it would obviously be unethical, if not illegal, and I think you better focus on that, Eddie, for CEPEP to commit the government to expenditure in the vicinity of $1.4 billion without any form of prior consultation and approval. It would obviously be unreasonable for such a transaction to proceed without the government having any knowledge of it because of the implication for the national budget. It would commit the government to a significant expenditure without any form of prior consultation, approval, or knowledge, and to my mind, that could not be right. Eddie continued, I was prepared to stand my ground on this issue because I am the accounting head for CEPEP, and as indicated above, serious allegations had been leveled against CEPEP by the Ministry of Finance about increasing expenditure without consent and unjustified and uncontrolled expenditure, with reported major discrepancies in the lead up to the general elections. I came under intense pressure from the Minister Al-Rawi and others to add new contractors and to assist certain companies. When I demanded documentary evidence and proof that approval had been granted by the Ministry of Finance or the Cabinet, none was forthcoming. I was therefore alerted. In April 2025, the month of the general election, then Minister Al-Rawi, tight pants, Faris, Johnny Sukaran, call your press conference. We don't want to hear the rantings of a madman who come back from Montserrat. Al-Rawi called me on several occasions to demand that I add new contractors into the CEPEP program. I was extremely concerned about his aggressive and demanding nature because I was being asked to add these contractors without any corresponding increase in funding, far less approval from the Ministry of Finance. More importantly, whenever I asked Mr. Al-Rawi to put his request in writing, he would get angry and never did so. I simply could not, in all good conscience, add new contractors without the requisite approval. Why would Al-Rawi not put it in writing if it was a legal, legitimate instruction and if cabinet approval had been received? Just put it in writing. Why would you not put it in writing? Faris, we're waiting to hear you. On April 3rd, 2025, the election in 25 days, the chairman and I had a WhatsApp conversation about this sensitive issue. And he warned me to be careful of Al-Rawi because he may not be speaking the truth. The following exchange took place, and you have the entire conversation verbatim here. Edwards, minister telling me you're giving him trouble. Joel Edwards, he said he was going to speak to the Minister of Finance and get back to me. He hasn't called me back. Dan Paul. That is you, Dan Paul, Kobo Sweat, Minister of Finance. Did Al-Rawi talk to you? Did you give cabinet approval, which you have no authority so to do because you're the Minister of Finance? Did you give any sort of approval? Are you aware of this? Your name calling up Dan Paul. Dan Paul, is cabinet approval a necessary and a requirement for this type of expenditure and extension of contracts? I'm not hearing you, Dan Paul. Why you don't open your mouth, Mr. Minister of Finance for a month? They continued, in response to paragraph 5, I say that the discussions I had with Mr. Edwards regarding the extension of all CEPEP contracts revolved around the issue of the need for cabinet approval and authorization. I expressed the view that cabinet approval was necessary and should be obtained given the magnitude of the decision to renew all the contracts and the extent of the financial commitment involved. I was informed by Mr. Edwards and verily believe that cabinet approval had in fact been granted. I questioned him about the source of this important information, and he indicated that CEPEP's line minister, Mr. Faris Al-Rawi, had advised him that cabinet had considered the matter and granted the necessary approval. I had no reason to doubt Mr. Edwards, and given the source of this information was the line minister, who is a senior member in the cabinet, I accepted that what he told me was the truth and proceeded to give instructions to the corporate secretary to prepare a note to the board on this issue. You people have seen the note. It was that note with the CEPEP letterhead and so on saying board approval, cabinet approval has been received, and therefore due to cabinet approval we ask you to approve the renewal of contracts and so on. You all saw that board note. Now, Mr. Eddie, you doing all of this, but right there in that paragraph, sir, you have a lot of responsibility because you should know that there's no such thing as hearsay or word of mouth for cabinet approval. You should have ensured, have been an experienced public officer serving since 2016, that a cabinet minute, a pink sheet was needed. And to the corporate secretary, Ms. Gopal Singh, you have to put a statement too. You are corporate secretary. You just take word of mouth, shoo, do this, and you prepare a board note without seeing the cabinet note, without seeing the confirmation, without seeing the cabinet minute, without seeing the number of the cabinet note. Ms. Gopal Singh, you have to explain yourself. You see, when you all do things for the PNM, then just run and leave all here, because the ones who have the responsibility for the taxpayer money in this case is you, Mr. CEO, Mr. Eddie. So while you telling the truth and so on, the truth ain't looking good for you either. Neither Mr. Joel Edwards, Faris Al-Rawi, we waiting for you. Dan Paul, we want to hear you. Stuart Smallpin Young, where are you? You were the Prime Minister. The note was prepared and circulated. And hear this one, people. On 23rd April 2025 by round robin. And the approval came in between that time and the 28th of April at 9:12 a.m. Election going on. People going and vote. Car picking up voters. PNM's trying to renew CEPEP contract without board approval, without cabinet approval, without authority so to do. It's you we want to hear from, Faris, not Rowley. Something about Interpol, Rowley. You like greasy pole.